If you guys didn't catch it in the audience, we talked about 9 figures, and that's anywhere from 100 million to 999 million, guys. We won't put Ryan on the spot, regardless of what end of the spectrum you're on that. This is a business he started when he quit his job at Blockbuster Video. So I think, and as he describes it, it's like anything that really any of us could have done. It's you got to think about it. You got to come up with the idea before someone else does, and then actually act on it.
And act on it every day. It's like, I mean, obviously you know this just as much, but it's every single day, 24/7. That's all you think about. That's all you do. Like all my friends were, having fun partying in their early 20s, and I'm just like, working and reading and learning and trying to figure this out. And I mean, it has to be something you care about and you're passionate about, because I would not have kept that focus that long if it wasn't something that I truly did love.
My guest today and I have a shitload in common. When we first met over Zoom, of all places, we started shooting this shit, and it became almost kind of a weird dynamic. My girlfriend at the time, she asked me if I had a man crush on him. I said no. It's just because he reminds me of myself a lot. And she said, well, and you love yourself, so yes, you do have a man crush. Well, me and her aren't dating anymore. This dude built a company from scratch, barely raised any money, and sold it for 9 figures. He capitalized on the internet and a particular domain name's popularity, and white labeled a product that was all the craze in the weightlifting, bodybuilding, and exercise world. I tell my son all the time, there are people that have ideas. There are people that can execute the ideas of others. But it is the very few who can execute their own ideas. Ryan had the vision, but he was also able to deliver on it. Ryan's not sitting still, and now he is invading the fitness space again in the virtual reality realm. The founder of bodybuilding.com and now Black Box VR, I introduced to 2000% Raise, the only person I know in the state of Idaho, Ryan Deluca. Welcome to the show.
How's it going? Thanks for having me.
Good,
we need to get you to Idaho and meet some more people.
Yeah, exactly. That's not a diss on Idaho. You are truly the only person I know there. Why don't we start there, man? But, a guy that's had the success you've had. You could live in a penthouse in Manhattan if you wanted to, man. You could live in LA if you wanted to. Why are you choosing Idaho? Not that there's anything wrong with that.
Right. No, it's a great question. So obviously lived here pretty much most of my life and build bodybuilding.com here and just have so much great friends and family. But people are surprised how great Idaho really is. Like I shouldn't be saying that because we're trying to keep it a secret, so maybe I should say it a different way. Okay. But truthfully, it's an amazing place that I'm here in Boise, the capital. And so it's like we got a nice big city with a lot going on and just there's a lot of great tech companies and fun things. So it's a beautiful place. And, I've thought about, should I try moving somewhere else? And I've known people that have done that and they always come back.
Yeah, that's funny. And I think we have a lot of sports fans on here. If they're anything like me, when you hear Boise, you're envisioning that blue football field at Boise State. And I'm sure you go to a lot of games.
We're potatoes and Boise State blue field. That's what we're all about.
Well, hey, man, I usually, no bullshit, I usually have a bunch of show notes and a bunch of questions that I want to ask in preparation. I didn't even do that today. I have just 3 little bullet points here is all I put together. And the reason I did that is because I think your story just kind of tells itself. And it's so interesting. And why don't I segue into this? I played football in the late 90s. I played at the University of Notre Dame and Northwestern University. Our strength and conditioning coaches would start giving us these little baggies with white powder in it. And what the hell is this? Oh, take this. And we'd take it and we're like, is this steroids? And we knew it wasn't steroids, but it was kind of being marketed almost as it was. And now it's called creatine. I don't know, Ryan, if it was the right place at the right time. Bodybuilding.com, you did a lot with creatine, but why don't we just kind of tell us the story. How do you even get a domain name like that? You know, did people didn't know what domain names were worth back then? You know, now it's second nature. People are going on GoDaddy and buying shit and not even putting it on the site just to resell it. Like how did the whole thing start with bodybuilding.com?
That's a great question. So, obviously grew up, really fell into loving bodybuilding and fitness, reading all the muscle magazines. So I was that 14, 15-year-old kid that, wanted to get buff to, get great at football and get chicks, the normal stuff.
Yeah.
Everybody kind of finds their thing. That was kind of going to be my thing. And so got super excited about all that and really started studying the industry and studying, supplements and workouts and all that stuff. And that was probably like 1994. 1995, 96, kind of my, last couple of years of high school, that's when you really started to hear about the internet, so you hear what's this e-commerce thing, the cyberspace, and nobody really knew about it. And it just kind of got me really excited about like, man, you could obviously I can go and talk to people, which was kind of crazy and get all this information, but I could also create something on there. And so I really had this idea like, man, I want to create something, create a business. So just in high school, I started creating little websites where I would sell like informational reports on like how to work out, here's workout advice and diet advice. And then even other things like how to start an affiliate marketing program or how to do search engine optimization before that was a thing, like before Google was around,
Nice.
And I would just charge I couldn't accept credit cards or anything. So I would just charge people like $10, send it in the mail. And suddenly all of a sudden every day in my mailbox, just in high school, I started getting hundreds of dollars of people just sending me these things. And I would just send them out a Word doc by email. And so it started really taking off. Yeah. Wow. So it's kind of crazy because just sitting in my house and doing this. And it was like, man, this
that's
is
like an old
cool.
school, like an underground newsletter back in the day. Like, here's my gambling tip, send me $10 or something. Wow, that's pretty cool.
Yep, it was very much like that,
Yeah.
So I started getting more excited about that, of course. And then that's when I said, let's go try to sell an actual product. And that's when I said, let's go look at creatine. And so creatine had just come out. It was, very expensive. At GNC, you could buy it for like $80, like a month supply. And so I figured if I can go and buy it at wholesale, put my own label on it and be able to sell it for like maybe $40 or $50, which, compared to today is still very expensive. Sell direct to consumer online using a lot of these techniques, then I could see what could happen. And at first, nothing really happened. I didn't sell anything, and I kind of thought maybe it wasn't going to work. I checked my mailbox every day, and nothing came through. And I actually had a PO box at that time, and so went on a little vacation, came back, checked my PO box, and there was so much mail for me. It was like a huge bag in the back, So that's when I kind of realized, like, oh well, there's something here. And it was just this little wholesale-creatine.com little website, and just one product, and just really started to take off. And I started learning a lot more about marketing and all that stuff. And that's when, I said, hey, let's keep it going. And the bodybuilding.com name somebody owned, but they weren't using it. So I contacted them. Like, hey,
wholesale-creatine.com. You didn't have, that probably wasn't taken. Back then, you probably just made that up yourself. So you got that random for free. Okay.
Yep.
Okay. So and you were what, 18 years old at the time?
17, 18. Yep,
okay.
Right around
so
that
all you're doing right there. So any entrepreneurs listening, this other minds think, okay, so that's so basic, but no one else thought of it, right? All right, continue.
Well, yeah. It was interesting because I really got into the idea of like direct marketing, and which, creating a product, creating a brand, and like selling it direct to consumer. Because you couldn't open up a retail store. I didn't have the funds to create a brand that I could sell to other retail stores. So it was like, how do I just sell direct to consumer? Which nowadays, of course, that's a big thing. But nobody wanted to order anything on cyberspace. I keep saying it like that because it was this weird thing. I'm not going to, order something there, and it's going to take forever to get there. And so even and nobody knew how to do the marketing, get in front of people, and that's really what I specialized in. A lot of copywriting and sales techniques and things like that.
So they would literally, you weren't even processing credit cards. They would literally send you a check. You would take the check and then go mail them creatine, like just physically out of your house?
Out of my garage. Yep. Yeah. I mean, I couldn't accept credit cards. It was very difficult to get a merchant account back then. It's like, I always say now I could have a website up and accept credit cards, through whatever by the end of this podcast. Back then it was a big deal to get a merchant account.
Yeah, that's awesome. Okay, sorry, I digressed slightly there. So then you decided, okay, bodybuilding.com. Oh shit, it already exists. What do we do about this?
Yeah, so I contacted the guy. So if you typed in the name, it didn't go anywhere, but you can go look it up that somebody owned it. So I messaged the guy. I was like, hey, I want to buy it. I want to build a company with it. And he was like, it's not for sale. So I it was like a bummer, but like waited about a year, still wasn't using it. So I contacted him again. He's like, all right, well, I'm busy with other things and, other companies. So how much? And kind of went back and forth with them a whole bunch of times. And eventually for $20,000, he said, all right, the domain's yours. And, luckily I'd been building up these businesses, cause I came from nothing. My mom was a checker at Albertsons. Like we didn't have any money. And so building up enough cash to be able to say, I'm going to go invest into this domain was a big deal. And like you said, people didn't know what that was about. My dad actually yelled at me and said I was an idiot. Like, why did I spend all this money on this thing? And I eventually hired him a few years later, But so I just said, all right, this was kind of my thing. Like I got this name now and I'm going to use all these techniques. I'm going to just create this massive site with everything I always wanted, like that teenager that was trying to learn about fitness and wanted to talk to people, but was too scared to go talk to the buff guy, across the gym, and really wanted to learn more and wanted to get products at a good price and the ones that actually worked that I could trust and get them quickly. And so really it was just like, all right, let's go at this and build this company to make it as big as we can.
That's amazing. Okay. So bodybuilding.com though was, okay. So somebody wasn't using it. You bought it for 20 grand. What year was this?
1997.
I got to think paying 20 grand for a domain name in 1997 for a website that's not even up is borderline insane thinking. Like nobody was doing that, right? Am I right?
Correct. Yeah. Nobody was doing that. Like it was very early days.
And I'm going to guess that you exhausted other similar names like bodybuilder.com, bodybuild.com, muscle.com, and you approached all of them too, but they were all up and running. Bodybuilding.com was the one you found that kind of fit the criteria that nothing was there. Am I right?
Yep. Yeah, exactly right. Yeah. I mean, and obviously having a name like that was just a great start because it created some, authority right away. And some people would, back then people would just type in names like that. Like now we would never just I want to buy some shoes. I'm going to go to shoes.com. Back then though, people did do it that way. And so it was I looked at a bunch of things. I sold a bunch of other products during that time, creating a whole bunch of other little kind of niche websites. But that was really the focus I wanted, was to create this all-in-one place that had everything.
Gotcha. Okay. And you made it so you're a musclehead kind of workout kind of guy. You want to share your information that the meatheads at Gold's Gym and Powerhouse Gym know, but you're going to share it with the middle-aged guy that's not going to approach you guys, or maybe the girl that's intimidated, right? That's the idea behind the content.
Right. Exactly. I just knew, a lot of people say, don't build a company for yourself, do the market research and find out what other people want and build that. But honestly, I built bodybuilding.com for exactly what I wanted. I wanted to talk to other people. I wanted to get that information, that content, because I wanted it for myself. And so almost everything we put into it was basically, it just turned out that there were a lot of other people like me.
Okay. And then so was it all just content at first, or were you selling, what did you lead with, to come there to buy products or to come there to read content?
It was three things: content, commerce, and community. So we started right away with putting articles up on the website. We started right away with forums, which ended up becoming a really big part of the business, of course. And then with the store site, and bringing a bunch of other brands and products all together. So it was really all three of them right from the beginning.
I remember being on websites in the early 2000s with those message boards. I'm assuming that's what you were doing. And I mean, did you have to just constantly sit there and delete hater comments, like a full-time job, just monitoring the message boards?
We could have a 5-hour podcast about the problems that the forums gave to us. I mean, we literally had, the FBI would come into my office and say, hey, I'm literally into my office. We're sitting there working, what's going on? Just see a badge. Oh, you guys have somebody on your forum that said they're going to kill the president, and we need to get information on who this is. If you even make a joke. Yeah. Or our forum would be arguing with 4chan. And so they would call in, hey, call the police and say, I'm on the roof at bodybuilding.com. And I'm going to kill everybody. So we'd have to everybody would have to leave the whole building. This is years later when we had hundreds of people there because they were just pranking us,
Oh
and
my gosh.
Of course, vendors fighting each other. Yeah. Of course, people posting, obscene material and things. So we had a bunch of moderators that would help with that. Yeah. So there was quite a bit of that kind of stuff, but I mean, that's still how it is today, but it was one of those early communities trying to figure that out. And so there's a lot of those negatives, but way more positives than negatives.
When you said the FBI, I thought for certain you were going to say someone's trying to sell steroids on your thing, but no, you said they're going to try to kill the president. Okay, they're killing the president in your form. Got it. You took that to a different level there, bro.
Yeah, because even if you even joke about that online, you know what, if the president should die, then they have to investigate. And so, and of course, everybody was confused about the internet back then. They didn't understand how it all worked and who was doing it and what was happening. So they would come to us and and it created a lot of hassle. But like I said, it was worth it.
Yeah, as a venture capitalist, I do a lot in the tech space. I'm in a lot of different spaces, but I do have a little bit in tech. And we're still in our infancy of where the internet is, and where it's gonna be, right? And you talk about just we're in infancy now. 25 years ago, it sounds like it was even more of an infant. You know what I mean? This what you're describing right now. 20-year-olds are like, what the hell is he talking about? What do you mean a message board where someone would say that? They'd get arrested. They'd be at their house. It didn't work that way back then. So what was the environment in the fitness world? GNC was probably huge already, right? The gyms, I'm assuming, were selling supplements. There was probably, I don't even know, a muscle and fitness at the grocery store section. I'm imagining, I don't even know. Like, how did you fit in? And was a big piece of your value proposition the fact that you're skipping brick and mortar and you're able to just come in way lower than everybody?
That was a big part of it. I mean, it was the things that we take for granted with the internet now is just a wide selection. Like, it used to be you go to GNC, they're going to have their limited set of products. You're not really sure if you can trust the person that's selling you the products because they're getting a commission. Of course, it's high prices and, just the pain in the butt of having to go to the store. Interesting thing about supplements is you need it every month, so it's like that replenishment. And so you'd have to go to the store every month, which nowadays that would be such a huge pain. And so that was a big benefit. The other benefit was to be able to, replace like the muscle magazines. Because as we all know, right, the muscle fitness, the Weider empire, like that is where we all got our information. There wasn't really any TV shows or anything like that. It was all there. And that was just, we loved it and we got a lot of great info there, but it was once a month. It was one way. You couldn't talk back to anybody. You couldn't meet the people. And, there's no communication. And so it was really like very limited amount of stuff where like with the internet, it's unlimited. And so we really jumped on that. And in the beginning, it was, I was writing articles, a couple other people I was working with me writing articles. And then we started trying to get other people to write articles. But at first, I mean, it's funny to think about it. Nobody was creating really content. Everybody at first was just trying to sell products like any of our competitors or other people, the Amazons. But nobody really thought, why waste the time creating content? Or I'd go to somebody like some bodybuilder or a fitness model and say, hey, you should write content for our website. And they would just laugh, like, why would I write an article for like this website type thing? They didn't understand it. They didn't like it. They wanted to write for a magazine. If it didn't get into print, it didn't count, And so we struggled a lot with that in those early days. And like I said, with the community side of things, that was the other big part. And it was just we had to create it all from scratch. Like you could create communities, you can create e-commerce platforms, like, all these things like quickly now. We had to like code the first shopping cart. Once it was the idea that, shopping cart's a pattern that people are going to follow and all that kind of stuff.
You had to code the first shopping cart. That's hilarious. If you really think about that, it's like a plugin now on WooCommerce, right? That's hilarious.
Yeah. I mean, I remember when it was like, this add to cart, add to bag idea came out, like a pattern, that wasn't even a thing. And then we were like, that kind of makes sense. And everybody kind of started doing it. And like, that was kind of where that phase was back then. So it really was a time for people that were innovating.
So your margins were probably big enough where you're able to roll this thing, right? Like, so you get going, you spent the 20 grand on that. You already mentioned you had a few hundred employees. As you went, Ryan, you didn't raise any money or much money from investors. And I'll let you speak to that, which I think is just phenomenal, by the way, for what you exited the company for. It's just unheard of nowadays, especially when you're talking about an e-commerce type of platform. Where did the money come from, Ryan, to start getting, I'm assuming you started getting kind of street credit within the bodybuilding community in terms of the big competitions and whatever the governing, I got a couple people in here with me that would probably tell me what I'm trying to think of, like the competitions, whatever those governing bodies are that have them. They probably started to like embrace you guys as like a muscle and fitness magazine kind of status, right? Did you have to buy your way into that? And if you did, where's the money coming from to do that?
It's kind of like the whole thing. It's like, it takes a decade to become an overnight success. Like in the early days, I bootstrapped the company. We never had any outside investors. So I started with nothing. Obviously my job before this was Blockbuster Video, which now I've left, and now look what happened after I left. I don't want to say it was all me. But,
They fell apart. They fell apart.
Literally, like, I don't want to say it was me, but you can't prove it wasn't. But literally, like stocking shelves at Blockbuster and just reading a lot of books and studying. I didn't know another CEO. I didn't know any investors. I'd never met anybody like that. And so it was really just bootstrapping it, so I started this little e-commerce, like with a wholesale creatine, I was selling those informational reports and, just going through that stuff with affiliate marketing. I was making like 20 grand per month, like just right after high school, and that's when I started investing back into, all right, at first it was all just my own cash flow from those other things, plus bodybuilding sales to like just buy the products. And, the fun part is talking about, we like to talk about the, eventually 9-figure exit, but there were many years of sleepless nights. How am I going to make payroll tomorrow? Because, the credit card company has my money. They're not going to give it to me. Now you get it like a lot faster. They're not going to give it to me until Monday. I have a COD EAS shipment pallet coming in today that I don't have any cash for, and I need the payroll to get paid the next day. And, it's mostly friends kind of working for me type of thing. And it was just years of trying to figure out, like, we were growing business, which is great, but we were always behind when it came to just being able to just kind of stay up with cash flow. And a lot of people don't realize that cash flow can be that difficult when, even when you're growing, because you need to get the products and you got to sell them. And it takes a little bit of time until you actually get the money into your bank account. And so many times going to the bank and just begging them to give me the cashier's check, so I could pay for this product that's coming in. So our customers aren't mad at me anymore. But it was just like years of that kind of stuff. And, but that's what bootstrapping really is like, man, now you care about every dollar and you're being very careful with it. You're being lean. You're not wasteful, which if you get too much, upfront capital, then, it's easy to waste. So I guess like that's the longer version of eventually we started getting that kind of cred where people realize like, hey, we need to be on bodybuilding.com. We're getting a lot of traffic. People are seeing like where this is all going. The e-commerce thing is becoming bigger. We did start sponsoring shows and we, I remember our first ever pro bodybuilder interview was with Lee Priest, one of the top bodybuilders of the 90s. And,
wow.
We emailed him, hey, will you be on our, can we interview you for our website? And he said, yes. And I just remember how awkward it was walking around my little office talking to Lee Priest, like mind blowing kind of thing. But eventually it kind of started going that way. And then, but over a decade where people started realizing that they wanted to be a part of this. And then we got a lot of that benefit, but it also came down to like just taking care of every customer and building that loyal customer base that bought every month and told their friends about us.
I feel like by the time everybody else figured it out, you had such a head start on them, right? I mean, you were so far ahead of everybody else. And from an entrepreneurial standpoint, we talk about exits, right? And if you guys didn't catch it in the audience, we talked about 9 figures, and that's anywhere from 100 million to 999 million, guys. We won't put Ryan on the spot, regardless of what end of the spectrum you're on that. This is a business he started when he quit his job at Blockbuster Video. So I think, and as he describes it, it's like anything that really any of us could have done. It's you got to think about it. You got to come up with the idea before someone else does, and then actually act on it. Which
and
is
act
amazing.
on it every day. It's like, I mean, obviously this just as much, but it's every single day, 24/7. That's all you think about. That's all you do. Like all my friends were, having fun partying in their early 20s, and I'm just like, working and reading and learning and trying to figure this out. And I mean, it has to be something you care about and you're passionate about, because I would not have kept that focus that long if it wasn't something that I truly did love.
Well, and I feel like for that kind of business, right? Once you're getting out, once you're going to start, especially when it's small, it's so easy just to keep motivated because you're making this money, and it's like the margins are there, But then, but the real issue becomes, okay, now we're going to try to scale a little bit bigger, and chances are you have to take a step back financially from a personal standpoint to reinvest. Well, shit, if I don't do this, I could keep making my X thousands of dollars a year, and I'm pretty freaking happy living in freaking Idaho and F Blockbuster, and I don't need to go to college even. F this. Let's cut that in half, reinvest this, working even more than I am currently, and what could that result into? And you're you did just that, man. That's incredible.
And it's true. I mean, definitely wasn't making a lot of money, like just cash flow, like for a lot of years. So it was still kind of bootstrapping, but the idea, I think, of being constantly paranoid, it's like I always was thinking like we need to build this and do this because there's always new competition, new technologies, new things we need to do. And I don't think there's ever a moment in the 17 years of running bodybuilding.com that I was like, oh, we're all good now, we can kind of take a break. It was always like, these things are coming and these opportunities, and we need to do these things. And if we don't reinvest, then, we're going to be in a bad place. And
But even if you stayed at wholesale-creatine.com, I mean, you probably could have made a good little living for yourself right there and just manage that, get a couple hundred customers, do it out of your freaking garage. You know what I mean? You're still making that decision at some point, man. And I mean, that's so shifting gears here. Exits nowadays, they're right now where there's strategic exits, there's private equity exits, there's IPOs, whatever the case may be. What was on the table for you back then? Were you hoping that GNC would come in and buy you guys?
As an entrepreneur, you're always hoping potential. Yeah. That's the potential, right? But I always say, build a company like you can't ever sell it. Build it like you're going to run it for the next 100 years. Because when you build a company that's lasts for a long time, that's what somebody wants to acquire. They're buying the future. So if you're creating something that's only to sell, then it's not going to work. Like just like if you're trying to I want to start a business to make money, then you're not going to, because you need to put the focus on, I want to build a service or a product that has value to other people. That just happens to be that they're going to pay for that. And so it really was in the back of your mind, you're always thinking potentially could be acquired. But I was always wondering who would possibly do it, because it's would it be some muscle fitness type of place? Would it be like a GNC? And didn't seem like there were that many options because I didn't know anything about private equity. That wasn't a phrase I knew about. And so eventually then, as we started growing, we started getting these people reaching out to us saying, hey, we acquire companies like this at this range and potentially could be worth this much. And of course, when I'm looking at the dollar signs, it's shocking amount of money, even those kind of earlier days compared to what I'd grown up with. And so that was always on the back of my mind, but it really was create the company in a way that if it didn't work out, that we'd still be fine.
Yeah, isn't that funny? It's like damned if you do, damned if you don't, in a good way, whatever the opposite of that is, right? Like for me with my insurance company, I had built up such a high level of EBITDA that I would never sell to a strategic. They wouldn't have been able to afford me. There was never a deal a strategic would have been able to make that would have made any sense for me. No way. But private equity comes in, that's a different game. Well, wait a minute. You're going to offer me this much? And people are telling me, well, you make this much, but they're offering me that. Well, they're only offering you that because you make this much. Okay, well, this is one of those good problems to have. And it just becomes, kind of what do you want to do with your life, right? So who do you want to share who bought you?
So we did sell to private equity, actually kind of in the middle of the bodybuilding.com kind of period there. We did sell a chunk of it to an outside party, like just a random private equity firm, which then, we took that money and that was just basically just buying equity from me. And then I had given a little bit of equity to my brother and my dad at that point too. I was still 72% at that point. Sold a chunk, just enough that I can kind of take some off the table, really what it was about. We didn't put any money into the company from that, but it was, got me around $10 million into my bank account, which was at that point was a shocking amount. And I think you hear the story of people that you finally get that wire transfer that comes in and you go to the ATM just so you can see it on the ATM, on your checking account, and you just kind of take a moment, and there was quite a long story to get to that point. Of course, people always want to give you money once you don't need it as much when the company's starting to do well, but so that was actually, great. It actually made it so I didn't have to stress quite as much. But once you sell to private equity, if you're still running the company as CEO, or you sell to anybody, you've made a bunch of promises during the period of selling the company, and now you got to live up to those things. And so it was, and I still owned, a really large chunk of the company, so I was very incentivized to keep that going. So it was almost like I got the ATM receipt, looked at it, felt pretty good for about 5 minutes, and then it's okay, we got to go back to work, But then eventually, just a couple of years later, sold the company to Liberty Media. That John Malone owns a media conglomerate out of Denver, and they were buying up kind of niche e-commerce websites like Backcountry.com, ProFlowers, things like that. And we were one that they decided to buy. So sold from the private equity firm out to them. Sold a little bit more from myself, and then I still had a really good chunk there to continue running the company for another 5 years after that, and then eventually sold the rest of the shares to Liberty Media in 2015. And then that's when I took a little bit of a break.
Gotcha. Yeah, that's a great progression. And it's so damn similar to mine. It's amazing. I first of all, I was hitting the refresh button on my Chase account when I sold my company away. The money was supposed to be wired to my checking account. I kept pressing the refresh button, waiting for it to show up. Hilarious.
It's such a surreal thing.
Well, and for anyone that didn't catch that detail, you got a guy that bootstrapped to 9 figures And like you said, was still owning 72% of the company at that first transaction, which is incredible. So fast forward now us to 2015, which, by the way, Ryan, is the same year I sold my company, but you had sold yours, I guess, technically previously, and you sold bits and pieces of what was left.
Piece, yeah.
Yeah, so 2015 happens, and you move to Maui and hang out, right?
And that's where I'm at here in Maui. And sometimes I think I should have done that, but yeah, I try to take a little break, because running a business, as you know, especially e-commerce, it's 24/7. Even if you're on vacation, it's like it's never. And Christmas morning, you're thinking about it. So I was like, all right, let's take a little bit of a break. Sold the business. It was such a weird feeling leaving that day when I realized that, like, obviously I still cared about the business and what was going to happen, but I wasn't like responsible. And it was like this weird moment of like, I've never in my life not had to worry about all these things every day. And so I could take a little break.
How old were you at the time?
Like 35.
Yeah. So this had been your whole life since you were 18, working your ass off. And now it's just like, now you don't.
Yeah. Now all of a sudden it was kind of a little strange. Like I said, it felt really nice at first. And I said, all right, don't know what I'm going to do, but I'll take a year off or so and then figure it out later. And yeah, I went to, traveling around the world, long-term travel, went to Thailand, did a whole bunch of fun stuff. And, nice. But honestly, it was like the most depressing time of my life. Like it was crazy how much not having a focus and a purpose, like this thing that I was working on, just, there was no reason for me to read books anymore. There was no reason for me to build anything. And you're on Twitter and you see somebody's building something cool and you're not. And I just hung over, on a Tuesday and just hung over. Yeah, just miserable. Yeah. You have to think about your life for a minute there on like another Tuesday. I'm like just hung over and not creating or doing anything. And it's weird retiring early too, because if you retire, say business at 50, 60, you can think, oh, I'm just going to retire, but it's like I have a lot of years left. Am I literally going to take everything I've learned and everything I can do and just do nothing? Just felt like such a waste and just felt like, I still had young kids and just, they didn't really see me building bodybuilding.com and just thinking about them, not just seeing me as a person that's just, leisure time all the time, just didn't feel right.
Yeah. Yeah, dude. I had that 5 years employment contract the year after I sold my company, and the people I brought over with me still worked for me at the new company that bought mine, but we were all mixed into the culture of the existing, and it was fine. But somewhere between year 2 and year 4 of that 5-year contract, I kind of lost my way in terms of just like the pep in my step was gone going to work. It was kind of like just dead man walking over there. And when people start asking you what's wrong and shit, like it's, seething that you're not happy. So I needed something.
If you ever hear like, sorry to interrupt, but if you ever, I know a lot of entrepreneurs that have sold and like, every time they do that, the press release is like, but I'm still the CEO. I'm still going to be here for life and it's never going to end. And I always say, give it 12 to 18 months and they're going to be gone, because it's just hard to keep that fire going and to care as much when you've kind of, you reached that next level.
Yeah. Well, you know what it was with me, man? So it was a private equity roll up. So they're buying other smaller companies like mine. And I was one of the relatively first ones to be bought. And I'm trying to adapt to the existing culture and being a team player. Oh, we could get rid of my old company's name. Oh, these other companies that have nothing to do with my employment contract. I'm going to fly out and visit them and train their people how to sell like we do. And I'm going to help groom these employees. And I'm going to be on these committees, that committee. And, it's good. It's good. It's good. It's good. Well, then as other companies start getting bought, and other people maybe are in positions like I was in, or maybe not quite the same position because their company had multiple owners and maybe their EBITDA from a percentage standpoint wasn't even close to mine. And yeah, they had an exit, but it wasn't like mine where they don't have to work anymore. Now all of a sudden egos are getting in the way. People are stepping on each other's toes. This guy's trying to showboat because he wants to be that guy for the next 20 years. And John's going to be gone in a few years. And all of a sudden you just start to the kinks in your armor, like a little freaking hammer. Okay. All right. Well, when's this employment contract done? I'm ready to go.
And I agree. It's like going from being like in charge and then, working for somebody else, and obviously that it could be great in some ways because there's less stress. Like you don't have as much that you're responsible for, but something that a lot of people can't understand if they're working paycheck to paycheck is this idea of like this unlimited potential future. Like
Right.
most people, it's like, oh man, do I want to like retire and move to Thailand? Like that's not even an option. Like why would you even? It wouldn't even come up in their mind. Like it just you can't afford
Right.
it. I got to pay bills. I got these things. But
Yeah.
when all of a sudden you reach this next level, all of a sudden you're like, man, I could like right now go retire and live over in some other part of the world. I could be on a yacht somewhere. I could be, do it
Yep.
then, or I could
Yep.
be building something new. It's like I could go create this brand new something and this other thing. And like, there's so just your options are so big that it actually creates this other type of stress where you're like, what you're doing right now, like maybe it's not the best and maybe there should be something else. And it does kind of eat at you a little bit. And I think that's a difficult thing for a lot of people.
Well said, my friend. And I think for me, you had already mentioned it that you had kids. If I didn't have kids, I don't know where I would have ended up, because my kids wanting to be a good dad for my kids, kind of, I make it anyone watching on YouTube, world's greatest dad mug I'm using right now. So Father's Day gift.
That's hilarious, actually.
Dad fuel. It says dad fuel for dorks.
That's funny.
Anyway.
Yep.
Anyway, if I didn't have that, I don't know. I don't know where, I kind of fell off the deep end a little bit. I'm not going to lie. Like just, not deep end, but I, vacationed and maybe just like partied a lot. And that didn't last very long though, man. It gets old fast. You know what I mean? It gets old fast, and you got to have it in you to pull yourself out of that, because there's no one that's going to tell you to. Because if you got enough money to do whatever you want, you're not going to run out of money. That's not going to do the trick for you.
Mm-hmm.
So anyway.
It's funny. I went, like we said, we went through the exact same thing,
Yeah.
I got, married right out of high school, basically to my high school sweetheart. And so I didn't have that party phase and, just working, which is what I wanted to do and building things. And then eventually all of a sudden having this freedom. And, I'd recently actually got divorced around that time. So it was like, okay, now I can actually go party and go do all this stuff. And it sounds really fun, and it is fun for a short amount of time. But you're right. Like it's almost like in a mini way being like a celebrity where you hear about like no one ever says no to them. And how did it ever get to this place, where they're overdosing on this stuff. And obviously I didn't go, in that direction, but it's like, I can see how you always have people that want to do things and invite you to things and hang out with things. And you just don't really, my wife's coming in, my new wife, Steve, which partly
we're not talking about you. We're talking about someone else. That's funny.
Right? Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Well, they say like everything's good in moderation, right? But when you're in that position, Ryan, it sounds like, you have the same experience. There's nobody to moderate you. There's no way. Everything's great in moderation, but there's no moderating. You know what I mean? And I will say I'm still guilty of vacationing all the time. I go on like nice vacations all the time, but I do like to have something else going on. And that's part of the reason I'm doing this podcast. And it's definitely the reason I'm doing venture capital. I bought a place out in Los Angeles recently just because I needed, I feel rejuvenated. I'm involved in different things out in LA now. And, it's been kind of a rebirth for me in a lot of ways. You've now focused your energy towards a new business. And what's interesting about this is that you found a way to do this still in kind of the same space, but much different, cutting edge of e-commerce in the late 90s. What are we on the cutting edge of right now in technology? Virtual reality, artificial intelligence. Okay, your company in the 90s centered around exercise and fitness. Holy shit, Ryan. You found a way to focus exercise and fitness around black box VR. Could you tell us about this company?
Sure. Yeah. So I think, the segue into the company basically is exactly what you were talking about is, into that kind of party phase and having fun and vacationing and just waking up, just not feeling like I had a purpose or a meaning or being the best example for my kids. And like kind of joking around, like waking up on a Tuesday morning and everybody's going to work except for the type of people that you probably don't want to hang out with, because the people that aren't working on Tuesdays are usually not the best examples. But you mean like
your doctor and lawyer friends aren't available to go to the bar with you at noon on Tuesday? Like which
isn't that weird? Yeah, exactly. And so it, kind of got to a point where I'm like, all right, I've seen people go down this road and not come out of it, and it'll end very badly. Or I'd go downtown and like see somebody that'd been doing that same thing for 20 years, and it was like, I don't want to be like that. And so I only lasted 6 months of being retired, and that's when it's like, all right, what I need to get back into it, which that's my passion. That's what I love. It's like you said, it's fitness, technology, building businesses. I need to settle down with that stuff. And it really came down to, with bodybuilding.com, it was, this new internet thing, e-commerce, what is this going to be? And just how could we use that for the fitness industry? Like, what's the benefit that brings that I can take advantage of? And at bodybuilding.com, we were always on the cusp of new technology, like even in the beginning with like e-commerce in general, or just building content and like video content when that was like not really a big thing. And then web 2.0 stuff. And then of course, mobile. And we were always kind of like figuring out how do we use the new technology to help people to reach their goals, to get into shape, because we always talk about that 87% of people are not on a consistent fitness program. Very few people actually are successful at fitness. Adherence is the only reason that people are actually successful, just sticking to it over the long term. And very few people, the fitness industry, I mean, honestly, has completely failed. Like, we are more obese than we've ever been. We spend billions of dollars on everything. We have access to everything, but we just haven't got in any better shape, no matter what we do. And so that's when it was like, all right, how can we use this new technology of virtual reality, which at bodybuilding.com, we started looking at it, Oculus, these early years of those. Seems like there's something here, kind of cool. Let's see what happens. Facebook buys them for $2 billion, which felt like a moment like, all right, somebody's taking this seriously. Yep. And for me, it's always been, like I said, it's like, there's this new technology.
He just said something there. Virtual. I don't know if everyone understood that. Oculus got bought by Meta for how much? $2 billion, did you say?
$2 billion.
Yeah. For those of you
this little company. Yeah, created by Palmer Luckey. It was this Kickstarter Oculus company.
Little gem for our audience there. I don't think everyone realized that. So continue. I didn't mean to interrupt you there.
I mean, because sometimes people ask me, like, how do you see these next future things? And it's like really pretty obvious. It's like, well, there's these things going on with AI. There's these things going on with VR and AR and, all this new stuff. And if you just spend a little bit of time like researching kind of that next thing and then thinking, what are the new benefits that this brings to the world that's not possible before? And how can you use that for some purpose, like not just a generic purpose? And for me, the purpose has always been for fitness, how to help people to get in shape. And that's why we did everything about bodybuilding.com that we did, which, keeping people on a fitness program also helped them keep buying creatine and pre-workouts and protein, so that it was kind of this self kind of thing that kind of kept sustaining. So with VR, it was like, holy cow, there's this new technology. You can go inside the internet. It's like, instead of web pages, like it's web spaces where I'm inside it with you. We don't have to be on this like Zoom style call. Like, we can actually be there in person in 3D. What can that actually bring to the world? And started researching that a lot. And it became pretty obvious pretty fast that the biggest problem in fitness is people don't stick to their fitness programs. And how can we change that? And that's when it came down to video games people are addicted to. Like, they can't stop playing them. Like, right. You're playing video games all the time, and, they're making billions of dollars, and it's the biggest media industry, bigger than sports and radio and TV all put together. All these people playing these, but it's not good for you from a health standpoint. You wish that you could have a habit of working out, but it's boring, painful. You don't see results immediately, and it's, you have to do it forever. So if we could put those together, and that's what virtual reality enabled was, how about I play a really exciting esports style video game while doing like actual resistance training and a true effective workout, not just like a Wii Fit style thing. And so that's what we said, let's go get an office. I needed an office because I needed to like have a place to go, to like make sure I didn't get into bad habits. And with my co-founder, Preston Lewis, who worked with me building bodybuilding.com for many years, we said, let's go tackle this. And that's really what started Black Box VR.
Okay. And people should check out the website. You have an incredible YouTube video up there on your website that just really captures it. And what's really cool about this, everybody, you're wearing an Oculus type device, you're getting in this box, and you're actually competing in like a video game. You're in there, and there's an AI component too, right, Ryan, where the resistance will change. It'll learn your body. So if you have to row a canoe over a pit of fire, you know what I mean? You're going to have to row harder based on how strong you are, and the resistance will change. And you might be racing somebody else that's on the other side of the damn world, and you guys are racing each other in this. The canoe is not a good example because Ryan's imagination is way bigger than that. But that's the idea.
I'm actually writing that down. We need more canoes.
Canoes over fire, Ryan.
That's right. I got it. All right. I'm taking that one.
I'm thinking of like the freaking Atari game Pitfall or something like that. I don't even know what I'm thinking of. But it captures, and there's strategy to it, right, Ryan? Like if I'm fighting against somebody else, and we're going head to head and I got to, do this chest exercise over and over to get further in this than him or steal his flag or whatever the hell it is. I could also say, okay, I'm going to send this guy over here. And that turns into cardio. It's a sneak attack. I mean, the advancement of this game, when you first explained it to me, and I'm guilty of this, Ryan, I didn't actually watch that video until before this call. And I'm like, holy shit, dude. This is like, you're already executing on it, right? Like, I don't know what your funding looks like and everything else, but if you could get this out to the masses, this is fucking awesome, bro.
Well, thanks, man. Yeah, it's insane because we're out in a couple gym locations right now. It's a physical gym. There's a resistance machine. It's like basically CrossFit inside of a video game. Like it goes up to really heavy weight. So, I mean, it's a true fitness program where you're getting the right amount of volume per body part. You're going to failure. We have progressive overload. Like it really is. But you don't think about any of that stuff because, like you said, you're playing a video game. And like sometimes when people think video game, it's like they're thinking like, oh, I'm not into games because I'm like controllers. So it's really a sport that's enabled with a video game technology. Like, in a video game, you could do anything. So we could have these crazy, exciting fantasy type of environments and competitions and all that stuff. But you're using resistance training and cardio, resistance exercise and cardio in order to execute the attacks, use the weapons, do the other things. And what's amazing is that the psychology of video games is basically getting you into that flow state where the time goes by really fast because you're just like executing right at the limits of what you can do. And you're getting feedback immediately, all the things that fitness doesn't give you because normal workout program, I'm doing 3 sets of 10, same thing over and over. It's the most boring thing in the world. Even the pro bodybuilders that, I worked with many years, fitness models, most of them hate working out. Like you watch on Instagram, they love it, right? It's their favorite thing. They have to do the same thing all the time. They don't like it. It's boring. Or the fitness models that show up at our conventions, totally out of shape. Well, I've kind of been off my plan. Like the best in the world can't stick to their programs because it's so boring. And that's what video games bring to it. And it has been exciting seeing our members, like people that have never been able to work out before, and consistently like be on a streak of like 200 workouts without missing one, and they just keep coming back for the game aspect of it and not just directly for the fitness part of it.
I love that. What would you do when the fitness models would show up out of shape? Like send them home or just kind of deal with it? Or
deal with it. Yeah.
Have an awkward conversation. It's probably men and women, I would imagine, that you fall into that category with. Yeah.
Oh, yeah. All the time. Yeah.
I would imagine, I could be wrong. I know you have a path to profitability and you have a monthly subscription fee or the unit cost money, I'm imagining. But at some point to really scale this thing, Ryan, are you going to have to raise a lot of money? Is your exit strategy going to have to look a little bit different than bodybuilding.com?
Yeah. Because I have self-funded it so far. It's been nice to be able to just completely focus on building the product and building the business and not have to worry about having outside investors up to this point. But we do want to get it out there to more locations. So we want to start going out to more physical locations, kind of F45 model, getting it to more people out there. That's obviously expensive because there's a hardware machine component and all that stuff. Then have the at-home version of it eventually, over the next couple of years, we're starting R&D on that. So it is our goal to raise money right now to be able to scale more quickly. So we're kind of going through that process. But so far, it's been nice just be able to just focus on building the business, get the product where it needs to be because it's a complicated new thing. I mean, honestly, as funny as it sounds, it's the same as bodybuilding.com in the early years where building your own shopping cart, figuring out how to build warehouse management systems and that all that stuff is off the shelf now. And it will be for VR in the near future. But the innovators have to go through that difficult period of building it from scratch and not having all those tools. But that's what makes it valuable. Once anybody can create a YouTube channel or once anybody can create an e-commerce website, now there's just a massive amount of competition. And, try to create a new app in the Apple App Store, like it's going to be impossible. Like thousands of new ones get released every day. How are you going to do that? Well, if you're on some cusp of some new innovation, it's the most difficult thing to do, but it creates the most value potentially for customers and for potential acquirers.
Got it. Wow. And what's the website for Black Box VR?
Just blackbox-vr.com. A lot of good content on there. You can see what it's all about. And if you're in Boise, San Francisco, in the Phoenix area, or Oceanside, we have gyms open there, which you can go and get a free trial and try it out. And love to get your feedback.
And this is going to be, is it ever going to be for at residential homes or is it always going to be commercial?
It is our goal to create a at-home version, but that's another big project, because it's a whole bunch of aspects to that to make that happen. And we didn't know what we wanted to do exactly at first, so it was like let's go test this in a commercial environment with gym partners, with our own gyms that allow us to learn and iterate. And then once you're like, all right, we've got this thing where we think now it's time to create the at-home version, which hopefully is very soon.
Yeah, and all you if any gym owners are listening, Black Box VR, check it out, because it's a great way to differentiate yourself with your clients. I mean, it's awesome. Everyone go to that website and take a look. And I'll tell everybody, next time you're at your gym, whether you're at Export, Lifetime Fitness, or whatever the heck the gym is that you go to, Equinox, whatever, and you see that guy lifting 400 pounds, wearing Zubaz, and got the ripped shirt on, he's grunting, and you're like, oh, that guy's kind of annoying. 20 years from now, he might be, selling the company for 100 million plus, and that's who Ryan Deluca is. So. I appreciate you being on the show, man. This was awesome. Thanks so much, Ryan.
Yeah, it's been great. And hopefully come to Boise. I'll get you to introduce you to more people in Idaho.
For sure. And that wraps up another episode of 2000% Raise. Thank you for listening. The best way to support our show is by leaving a rating or review on all platforms you listened on. And of course, by following, liking, or subscribing. Visit us at 2000percentraise.com or at John Cerasani on TikTok and Instagram. And of course, my YouTube channel at John Cerasani's 2000% Raise. Find all the ways to follow today's guests in our show notes. Thank you for being a part of our entrepreneurial journey.